Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here. Boy, do we have a lot to discuss today. Holy shizzy, hitting the fizzy. Now, before we do that, I would kindly ask that after this video, you go check out that interview I did with former Lieutenant Colonel Jay Block. He's a nuclear weapons specialist. Everything you need to know, or you can know without going into classified realm of things, then go and check out that video. And very gracious with his time, very professional, and this guy knows his stuff. And like I said, a lot of what he said in that video maps perfectly onto what Dr. Peter Vincent Pry said. Although you got to understand that Dr. Pry has a bit more leeway in terms of what he can talk about, because he's not running for office, for one thing, and he's not still that close to the military. Okay, so that's something you guys have to keep in mind, is that Jay can't really go into great detail for reasons that are obviously national security reasons, but Peter Pry can speculate a bit more. So, and you gotta speculate, because what else can you do when you're like us and you're just down here in the fog of war? What else can you do? Now, information is power. That's why I do these videos, especially right now. Information is a commodity that is essentially worth more than gold when you're in the fog of SHTF, because it could mean the difference between life or death, or just making a life-changing decision. Now, I just want you guys to know, next week we're going to be doing videos on food canning. We're going to have a guest on to help my dumb ass learn how to can properly, even though I'm mostly a freeze-dry guy. But canning is definitely important, and it's more cost-effective for those of you who can't afford a freeze dryer. We're going to be doing a video on bulletproof vests, on body armor. We're going to be showing you how to charge your e-bike with solar, which is very important. It sounds simple, but it's kind of not so simple. You need a few things. And this weekend we have a video on food shortages and the rising food prices, all the inputs into the system that are causing that problem, what the outcomes might be, and how you can prepare for it. We just got a lot of stuff lined up. Like I say, we're restructuring right now, so we're going to be doing these daily briefs for a while yet, but we are going to get back into gear and talking about all that great prepping stuff that you guys have come to enjoy on this channel. Now, I do want to send a shout out to my man, Atlas Survival Shelters, Ron Hubbard. Yes, his name is Ron Hubbard, not L. Ron Hubbard, like the Scientology guy, but Ron Hubbard. And he unfortunately was the victim of arson recently, and that put a damper in his operation, because if you guys don't know, bunker sales are up. They're doubled, if not tripled, what they are because of this war. Remember, I had him on about 6 months ago, and he was talking about the elites building bunkers. Well, I think now we kind of get the sense as to why, because they realize how real these World War III threats really were. And that's the only people that can really afford bunkers now, because the price of steel and all the components are through the roof. I mean, it's impossible to get anything nowadays. But yeah, so I want to provide a bit more perspective on the Eastern Front today. Now, as a moderate, I'm used to getting flack from the right and from the left. I'm used to people on the right thinking I'm left and people on the left thinking I'm right. It's just, you're trying to remain objective. You're trying to understand the situation for what it is. You know, people who are politically charged always try to put you in a box and try to label you, and it's just the way it is. The same thing with this Russia situation. I'm trying to analyze the situation objectively, just like all the high-ranking military people and the analysts that I talk to who've actually done time and done service. They are also of the same belief that you should not, in any case, underestimate your enemy. That's the absolute worst thing you can do. So all these people, these millions of people who are watching these bullheaded videos that are narrated by the robot, and they talk about, you know, the Ukrainian wins. They don't provide any evidence. They just say, yay, we're winning, and they don't want to hear at all about the other side of the story. Those are the people you should be scared of, okay? And there's a reason. This is not to say, and just give me some time before you go down there in the comment section and start commenting, because I can hear you already. Trust me, I know what you're writing. Just give me a moment here. It's important to understand the broader geopolitical context that this conflict has occurred in. Yes, there's a definite legitimate grievance when your country gets invaded. You shouldn't do that, Russia. And authoritarianism is very bad. I'm not one of these fanboys who I think goes a little too far in their cheerleading of Russia just because Ukraine might be a bit corrupt. Yeah, they got some Nazi issues there. There's nobody denying that. There's some bad things going on. But that said, it's one thing to condemn that and then, condemn Russia, and it's another thing altogether to start cheerleading for the Russians to go in there. And that's definitely not what we promote. It was an illegal invasion according to international law. Say what you might about might is right and this and that. According to international law, what they did was illegal. Therefore, it shouldn't be done. But I also don't like this candy cane version of things that, the Ukrainians can do no wrong, which obviously has been debunked in the last few days with that video that came out with the mistreatment of the Russian POWs who on film were seen being shot in the leg. 3 guys being shot in the leg. 1 guy's face was beaten to a pulp. Just imagine what they're doing off camera to these guys. And this is the same, I got in an argument with somebody in the comment section who was cheerleading these POWs who were being paraded in front of these hand-picked journalists and talking about how how well they're being treated, even though they all got like bruises and all this stuff. And people are just so naive to buy this stuff. Guys, this is war. Okay, you need to understand what it is. It's not going to be pretty, and there's going to be bad things that are happening on both sides. And every person who's achieved a high rank and who's a seasoned analyst, military analyst, political analyst, has come to the same conclusion, at least from what I can hear, is that, yeah, there's more to this story than what Western media is saying. It's not just the Russians are getting their ass kicked 100%. Scott Ritter is a guy who brings a not so popular perspective to things, okay? You can go and, look him up. And he's a guy who's been on our side for the majority of his life, NATO, the UN, and I know I'm going to ruffle some feathers in saying that. But Scott Ritter has done his time for past administrations in the U.S., and he's been on our side of the fight. And even he says that, look, like the Russians definitely miscalculated in terms of, they underestimated the Ukrainian resistance, but they also were, what was I going to say? Jesus, there's just so much on my mind, so much information I want to unload. This Western media notion that the Russians should have went there and took over the country in 3 days is complete nonsense. Okay, there's no way in hell you can take a country over of that size, especially with the size of their army, 600,000 men, over 1,000 tanks, all of the Soviet-era weaponry that they had. There was no way in hell you're going in there in 3 days. Maybe you could do the whole cut off the head off the snake thing, take out Zelensky. Maybe that's what they thought. Maybe Putin did have some misinformation. But I can tell you one thing. Every single, 90% of the stuff that we're hearing about what's going on in Russia just later comes out as false. Like the guy who they said that the Kremlin was poisoning because, of such and such. Or this news story today of how they're conscripting 150,000 guys because they're running short on guys. They got an army of 1 million and 2 million guys in reserves. That conscription, that draft, is something they do. It's a mandatory draft. Every year, there's over 100,000 guys who are basically randomly selected for service to be drafted. And when your number gets called, your number gets called. And honestly, guys, I think that could be something that gets implemented here in the not-so-distant future if things keep going the way they're going, especially if the U.S. gets into entanglement in the East and then the Far East with China. There's going to be a draft. There's definitely going to be a draft. And not a lot of people are going to like it. That's when it's going to get really, really real for a lot of people. So anyway, Scott's approach is to try to look at the situation objectively, although I do think sometimes he goes a little too far, but it only seems like he's going too far because when you're coming at it from the perspective of the starry-eyed Western media, it's very easy to misinterpret him as being a Russian sympathizer. So, like I say, I'm anti-authoritarian to the core. I believe that what they did was wrong there. At the same time, you got to understand things in the broader geopolitical context. It can't just be Putin rolled out of bed one day and said, I want to expand the empire. It doesn't work that way. Okay, there's a lot more forces at work. And one thing people need to realize about authoritarians is that the more pressure the West puts on them, the more authoritarian they have to become. Now just try to think about it. Think about it from a dictator's perspective, all right? You're having these outside forces trying to undermine you to make you more democratic, right? So that they can put in their puppet governments into your government. So you have to increasingly be more suspicious and more paranoid about the people around you. And you increasingly have to restrict more and more the laws. So by us being so like putting these sanctions and being so against them, we're only making them even more authoritarian than they were before. And this is Russia, who's already a paranoid culture, and rightly so. Like most people in the States, we've never been invaded. In Canada, we've never been invaded, okay? We've never actually been in a major war with another country that was actually trying to invade our primary landmass. They've had that for many times throughout the last few hundred years. So that's something which is ingrained into the Russian psyche. And as such, you know, we need to at least acknowledge that if we're going to try to objectively understand the situation. Unless you're really low IQ person, then maybe you're willing to settle on a much more simple, less nuanced explanation. But that's the fact, okay? And the more we push guys like North Korea, the more we push these countries with sanctions, the deeper and deeper and more entrenched they're going to get. And they're going to become even more authoritarian, because they almost have to when you think about it. Because were they to let up, we would probably go in there and, you know, COINTELPRO them. We would go in there and we would find a way to, you know, create a revolution and overthrow the government. And there's a lot of people who are willing to fund things like that right now. In fact, they try all the time. I'm sure they try it over here too. So this is not about, yay, Russia, or, you know, a poor Ukraine or anything like that. This is just about trying to get an accurate assessment of what is going on in the battlefield so we can make decisions that can, you know, inform our emergency preparedness planning. Now, in terms of the strategy that's being employed right now, no, they're not really moving back from Kiev. Yesterday, I was kind of hopeful that things were progressing. But when I look at the broader situation, when I look at what's happening with the countries surrounding Ukraine on the NATO side of things and what Russia's doing behind the scenes, it starts to look like this is just going to, they're getting ready for another big push in the Donbass area in the east, where the bulk of the hardened Ukrainian army is. That's where the major battle is going to be fought, guys. And when they say they're pulling troops away from Kiev, they're only pulling away like 20% of their troops. They're leaving the rest there, and they're dug in now. So they're in a defensive mode there now around the city, where they're trying to restrict the amount of access to the major cities to kill them via attrition. Okay, this is now a war of attrition. But because they're not on the offensive anymore, they can dig in. They can build those pillboxes. They can bury those tanks. And they can basically just try to wait those cities out until they comply, and with whatever demands they have. And I'm not saying this is a good thing. I'm not saying, you know, any of that. If anything, I think it's terrible that Russia is doing what they're doing. I think there was many other avenues that they could have explored. But who am I? I'm just a guy who, you know, sees things from the outside. Now, what they're going to do then is they're going to reroute some traffic. They're going to fortify their position in the east, and they're probably going to do some kind of major offensive in the Donbass. And now that they've basically have the country encircled, which they always have, but now they're going to really start to boil the cauldron. And the cauldron is just a military tactic where you surround the enemy and you basically block off their ability to resupply, and you wait them out, and then you start heating things up when they start becoming demoralized. You get some civilian corridors to allow the people who don't want to fight a chance to escape, so you don't have to fight as many people. And it is what it is. That's probably what's going to go down. So as much as I want to be hopeful for what's going on, it really doesn't look like that's going to transpire. The payment for natural gas in Russian rubles is going to be taking shape tomorrow, I believe, where European countries, if they want Russian natural gas, are going to have to pay in rubles. I think there might be one exception in that they can pay with euros and transfer that to rubles or something like that. I really don't know all the details of it, but that's a big thing. Okay, it's a very important factor in all this. And yes, we're seeing military maneuvers all around the world, especially in Europe. They're starting to fortify their positions. The United States is sending more and more funding, weapons, and all this stuff. And even, not Blinken, what was the other guy's name? They're not convinced. And, you know, I got to hand it to the U.S. intelligence and their disclosing of information to the public throughout this whole thing. They're being very liberal with their intelligence that they're disclosing, and it's been fairly accurate so far. And you know, if only it was so accurate in the past, you know, then maybe people would just take what they say at face value. Unfortunately, it's not like that. Now, I received a message the other day from somebody who just a random guy online. So, you know, take this for what it's worth. I try to, you know, vet people as much as I can, but, you know, people don't always want to give information which is going to give away their position. They want to remain gray man. So take this for what it's worth. But remember, this is from 3 days ago, and I think it was just today that I heard that the U.S. was going to be building some military facilities within Poland. And you got Poland wanting to send its MiG-29 jets to the United States so that they can sneak them into the Ukraine. So I really don't, like, I want to see this thing de-escalate. I truly do, because I need a break from this. Okay, and it's hard to take a break from it when you know we're just on the brink. But it's not looking like that's going to happen. It's looking like this is a bit of a bluff. Anyways, I hope this email reaches you. I was going to comment on your most recent YouTube video you posted, but thought it was not wise to alarm your followers. Well, I guess I'm gonna do that today. Don't be alarmed, though. That's one thing, guys. I don't expect you to go out and live in fear as a result of all these things. You should use information, always should be empowering. It should not be petrifying. It should empower you to take more decisive, informed actions. I don't really follow too much that I see on the mainstream media, but instead choose to do my own recon and intel gathering, which brings me to LOGCAPV, Logistics and Augmentation Program. These contracts are awarded to government contractors for the duties and responsibilities of buildings and maintain theater military bases, Kellogg Brown and Root, Fluor, and Vectrus. This most recent contract is for Northwest Poland. KBR and Fluor were the same two contractors who handled the Green Zone in Baghdad, Iraq during the invasion, Operation Iraqi Freedom, Operation Enduring Freedom, and was the headquarters for the entire war. As someone who's done 2 tours with the United States Army, I'm very aware and alert and can see the writing on the wall for what's to come. Your pilot friend is correct. This is about to escalate quickly. Stay prepared, my friend. And thank you very much for that information. It's good to know. And if you guys have any information like this you want to share, that you want to parlay onto the community, then let us know. And the reference he's making there to my pilot friend is the guy who's basically transporting equipment to Poland, which is obviously going to be smuggled in to the Ukraine. It is what it is. This is public knowledge. This is not anything classified, okay? And it's obvious. It's obvious with all the Biden gaffes lately. I mean, every other day he's slipping up, telling soldiers that they're going to be going into the Ukraine and training Ukrainians and this and that. So we know that this is likely going to get hot. I think this is a bit of a pullback. Like I say, it's like drawing back a bow. You got to draw back that bow before that arrow fires. And I believe that is the Russian strategy at this point in time. Let me see if I have any other info that's worth noting here. This one is interesting, and you know, take this one with a big grain of salt, all right? Hi Nate, I'm so glad I found your channel. Love all the videos, but especially the daily intel you get and provide to your audience. Look forward to seeing what you have every day. I'm so obsessed with watching Flight Radar. Got the monthly subscription so I can keep it on all the time and regularly track traffic around the zone. I'm not an expert with this at all, but if you zoom into Sochi, which is a city in Russia, their planes are moving around, almost like they're running a computer program to show the vehicles moving. I'm not sure if this is because they're driving around the airport. I don't even know what he's talking about. The thing is, they are moving into mountains. So I'm wondering if there is something else going on to disguise what is actually happening. I saw a large number of planes, non-commercial, landing in the last week. Could be supply chains or question mark. One thing to keep in mind is that Russia did recently, I can't remember if this was just Western propaganda or not, but there's 300 planes. And I believe the Russians said they're going to give them back or they're going to pay for them. But it's very hard to trust flight radar right now because we don't know if Russia is still even utilizing that system. Remember, there's a lot of countries that are banning Russian planes. And so it's very hard to know if what we're seeing on flight radar is even true. I mean, we assume that that's true, right? And obviously, for reasons of international regulations, they have to have those transponders on. But you know, if you're not playing the game anymore, you don't have to have your transponder on. So it's hard to say. What else do we got here for you guys? I've been getting a lot of people emailing me about increased prices in the agricultural sector, which prompted us to make a video that we're going to release this weekend about all the insane price increases. Guys, like, it's a perfect storm. Like that phrase gets overused, but the term perfect storm is exactly how you can describe the mess when it comes to our food supply right now. Like, it is about to get bad in terms of the price of food. And here in the developed countries, we're not going to have to deal with starvation yet, but more developing countries that require those imports from Russia, like Egypt, I think imports 85% of its wheat from Ukraine. So if that situation in Ukraine doesn't come down, boy, is that's gonna create so many problems, because Egypt is a net importer, the biggest importer of food. You got 100 million people huddled up along the Nile River that's dwindling at a rapid rate. Not good. Yeah, so anyways, guys, that's about all I have for you today. Let me know if you have any information. If you do have any information you want to share, hit me up at canadianprepper@hotmail.com. That's where I take these messages. So stay safe. Go and check out those videos. J Block. Put it on while you're organizing your preps. It's long. It's over an hour. And go check out the Ron video that I did with him with Atlas Survival Shelters. He talks all about the elites buying bunkers, and that was about 6 months ago. And it's all starting to make sense now. Let me know what you think. Thanks. Take care.